Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Reddit Stories video, and today we've got some eerie true Reddit stories that'll seriously give you chills. I did my best to verify these, and if they really are true, well, that makes them even scarier. So sit back, relax, or maybe don't, and let's dive into some creepy, true Reddit stories. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subs. I realized someone was watching me. A few years ago, I lived on the second floor of an old apartment building. One night, I was up late binge-watching a show with the curtains open just a crack figured no one could see in from that angle. Around 1 a.m., I got this weird feeling, like I was being watched. I brushed it off until I caught movement outside from the corner of my eye. I paused the show, and there was a face in the window. A man was standing on the fire escape, staring directly at me. I froze, not knowing what to do, but when I finally stood up, he took off. I called the building manager the next morning, and apparently, someone had been sneaking around the complex for weeks. I haven't left my curtains open at night since. He threatened to kill me. This happened when I was 19. I'm in my late 30s now. I worked at an old-fashioned local diner in my city as a waitress. The job was fun, and the diner was really cute and had multiple locations. It had a bar area and a jukebox. We sold breakfast and lunch items and stayed open 24/7. I worked the day shift with the manager, and usually one other waitress. The manager doubled as the short-order fry cook. We had a few regulars that came in on certain days at the same time. They were old guys that shamelessly hit on us and made crude jokes. They especially thought I was attractive as I was young and put a lot of work in my physical appearance. One day, around 2 hours before my shift ended, a tall gentleman walked in and took a seat at the bar area. I greeted him, gave him a cup of water, and set a menu before him, which was customary. I told him to call me over whenever he was ready to order. He said nothing and just stared at me, smiling. I asked if he heard me. Still nothing, just staring and smiling at me. I walked away and his eyes followed me everywhere. He hadn't touched the water or opened the menu. I approached him again and asked, did he wanted to order anything? He just smiled and told me his name was Anthony. I said, okay, Anthony, are you going to order anything? Because frankly, his staring and smiling were making me uncomfortable. He stood up and said to me, I'm going to marry you, and walked out. It was a what the fuck moment, but the last hour and a half of my shift picked up, and I kinda forgot about it. On my next shift, Anthony showed up again and sat on the same stool. I brought him another cup of water, but didn't bother with the menu. He started his creepy staring and smiling again. I asked he was going to order something, or just stare. He just kept staring at me and smiling creepily. I told my manager that he was creeping me out, and she told him if he wasn't going to order, he needed to leave. He got up and walked to the door. Before exiting, he told me, you're going to be my wife. I went on with my shift but felt weirded out. The next day, Anthony showed up but didn't come in. As I was sweeping the dining area, I noticed him staring at me through the windows and the double doors. When our eyes met, he smiled and ran off. I won't lie, I was pretty nervous. After that, I had 2 days off and put it out of my mind. On my next shift, it was early, and the old guys were there with their normal, inappropriate conversations. This was during the time when Kanye dropped Gold Digger, and surprisingly, they knew the song. Anthony walked in and took his normal seat at the bar. I ignored him and filled the coffee cups of the old guys. As I was doing this, they started joking that a girl like me was the type of woman mentioned in Kanye's song, that I would never date a broke man, and that I looked high maintenance. Well, this angered Anthony because he suddenly slammed hard on the counter and screamed at me that I was a money-hungry bitch. He said he hated bitch like me. Everyone was quiet and still. You could hear a pin drop. My heart was racing. I screamed for him to get out now. He stormed to the door and screamed back, Bish, I'm going to kill you, before running out the door. Well, little one, 9-year-old me was literally shaking like a leaf in the wind. My heart was pounding and I couldn't concentrate or think. My manager told me to go take a breather in the storage room. I did, and called the non-emergency police number. I spoke to a kind lady cop who took my statement and Anthony's description down. They sent a cop to look for him, but he was gone. I told my family what happened, and every day a different relative sat up at my job, ate breakfast or lunch until I got off of work. It was really sweet, and I felt a lot safer with them there. About 2 weeks after that incident, the lady cop called me and told me Anthony had been arrested on drug charges, and because he fit the description I had given, and surprisingly, He had given me his real first name. They knew it was the same guy. He also confessed to stalking and threatening me. She said I no longer needed to worry as he was going away for a while. I thanked her for calling me. Fast forward a few years later. I still worked at the diner part-time between college classes. I was sweeping the dining area when Anthony walked in. For a minute, my heart stopped. The same fear I felt at 19 creeped back in, and I couldn't make my legs or mouth move. To my surprise, he instantly apologized to me. He said he was really sorry about how he acted back then, and that he was high on drugs and really messed up. He hoped I could forgive him. I was pleasantly surprised. I told him he was forgiven. I never saw him again. Unfortunately, all the diners closed down. The last one during the pandemic. I think my stalker has found me again after all these years. I always saw Marilyn walking 3 huge dogs in the park. She was a little 5'1" woman walking these giant Bernese mountain dogs and handling it with ease. I was in love even though I didn't know a single thing about her. I worked up the courage to talk to her. She was nice but hesitant. She seemed like an exceptionally wary person. I was patient and earned her trust. I slowly discovered she was everything I had built her up to be, in my head, and then some. We dated for months without her ever inviting me to her place. She always said she lived at the edge of town and hated it, but it was odd and unnerving. I spent a lot of my time wondering what the issue was. Was she married or a hoarder? We were 6 months in and had too many drinks when I confronted her on never inviting me over. I wasn't taking no for an answer. She had to bring me over, or I was breaking up with her. Marilyn brought me home. She wasn't married. She wasn't a hoarder. She did live on the other edge of town, in a little house filled with her giant dogs. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Things didn't stay that way. Marilyn's dogs behaved strangely. They would start barking or growling at random spots and corners of the house, as if there was an intruder. This also got worse in the middle of the night. The dogs constantly got up around 3 a.m., barking and going crazy and sniffing all around the room while we slept. I think I knew what scent they were picking up on. It was a male scent, musty cigarettes, sweat, and the sting of men's deodorant trying to cover it all up. It was so strong, I was getting ready to confront Marilyn on it. Did she have a man who was staying there when I wasn't there? The power of the smell was undeniable, as was a strong presence of someone else in the house. I asked Marilyn about it. She was very matter-of-fact. She was haunted by a male spirit. It always lingered. She didn't think it was dangerous, but it was scary. And it wasn't the house. It was her. It had been with her for a couple of years now, and different locations. She asked if it was a deal breaker. No, I was all in. I loved her. I could deal with ghosts. I could deal with feeling like I was always being watched. I could deal with never feeling alone. I wasn't prepared to deal with what the actual reality was, though. We spent time at Marilyn's place. Those supernatural oddities always lingered. She explained she got the 3 giant dogs to protect her from whatever it was. Everything had become kind of second nature to me, until one day when we walked into the house and Marilyn peeked right back out the living room blinds. "I keep seeing the same middle-aged woman everywhere I go," Marilyn whispered. I had no idea at the time that sentence was the opening line to a horror movie the two of us were about to live. She's plain, always wearing a hat, sunglasses, super small, and always driving a white car. "A Honda," Marilyn went on. I knew the car. I had seen it several times in the past few months. I could also picture a woman, hat, sunglasses, small. She always seemed to be around like an extra in a movie about my life. It was my time to admit something to Marilyn. I had a stalker, and apparently, she was back. I dated a girl named Savannah for nearly a year in my early 20s. She came off as just sweet at first, obsessed with me in the right way, then it became the wrong way. I'll spare too much detail, but I at one point found out that she was secretly recording almost everything we did in her apartment, and she collected random things of mine, loose hairs, keeping socks and underwear, even nail clippings. She also seemed to be developing an inability to be away from me for any period of time. She was showing up at my office every day, making me go to long lunches. A couple of times I was just running errands, and I thought she was following me in her car. It was too much. We had only been together for a few months. I broke it off. Savannah didn't take it well. She kept calling and texting me nonstop, kept showing up at my office, my house. She wouldn't take no for an answer. I eventually threatened a restraining order and pressing charges. She was in medical school and wanted to become a doctor. She knew that kind of thing could really affect her career. She finally relented. I remained connected to Savannah on social media. It appeared she moved to another state, got a boyfriend, and eventually married. I mostly forgot about her. She was definitely the middle-aged woman who was following us, though. Her build, the way she moved, it was all hers. I just had never thought it was possible. She was also clearly trying to make herself look older and more plain than she really was. A distant friend of mine I hadn't talked to in years was still connected to her through his girlfriend. I hit him up to see if he knew what the deal was. My friend provided anything but comforting information about Savannah. She hadn't moved out of state. She wasn't married. She didn't have kids. As far as he knew, she still lived in the area with her parents, had dropped out of med school, and was a recluse. He also didn't think she had social media. I did some investigating. The social media accounts of Savannah's I was still connected to were flimsy, barely any friends or followers or content. I did some research of people I knew she was actually related to, and it looked like the man in her life was actually her sister's husband and the kids, her niece and nephews. She may have been maintaining them just to throw me off. It also started to click with me. I had seen that white car a lot even before I was with Marilyn. I had also seen a plain, middle-aged woman with long black hair that I now thought looked like a wig, always wearing a ton of clothes, even in the summer. I just never thought to think anything of it. I was sure Savannah had probably been stalking me all along. It probably never stopped. She was probably just turning up the heat since she saw me get serious with Marilyn, feeling her grip slip away. I was going to follow through with the restraining order this time and pursue pushing Savannah away for the full extent of the law. Only problem was, I had to prove it was her and she was doing it. Restraining orders are a lot harder to set up than you might think. I was always on the lookout for Savannah with my hand in my pocket, ready to whip out my phone to take a photo or video. But it was like she knew. I never saw her or her white car again. The only problem was the haunting and the agitation of Marilyn's dogs in her house got more and more intense. It seemed to be all hours of the day now and more jarring, the dogs getting full-on angry, the presence in her house slamming and locking doors. It got so intense we started setting up cameras around the house to try and capture something. It didn't work until one of them fell behind the couch and accidentally got aimed at the backyard for a day and night. The first video alert hit me during the day while I was at work. A neighborhood kid walked through the yard, nothing sinister. It was so harmless I didn't even remember to move the camera when I got home. The next time I woke up to a ring notification in the middle of the night. I checked the camera and saw the neighborhood kid again, in the backyard again, but this time moving towards the back door. I was no longer just writing this off as an innocent neighborhood, teenage boys will be boys moment. I shot out of bed, ran out of the bedroom, and took to the living room flanked by all three dogs. I was startled by what waited for me inside the living room, not outside. A tall young man faced the doorway, the image of his broad back, cloaked in a t-shirt flashing, before my eyes for a second before he was gone. The dogs weren't bothered by the flash of a presence of the man. They ran right for the door and kept erupting with barking. I checked the Ring app. I saw the kid walking out the backyard and disappearing into the darkness. I breathed a sigh of relief and tried to calm the dogs. Then I heard Marilyn scream from the bedroom. I rushed to the bedroom and found Marilyn standing next to the bed and looking over at the window in horror. It was the middle of summer, and we were fighting the heat, sleeping with the windows open. I could visibly see the screen had been cut, and the blinds in front of the window were swaying on a windless night. "Someone tried to grab me," Marilyn whispered to me, staring at the darkness of the window. A thought came over me at that moment. Just before I started to comfort Marilyn, I wasn't so sure it was a neighborhood boy who terrorized us that night. The size, the movements on the Ring camera, it all added up to Savannah, but dressed as a teenage boy. I took the footage to the police and tried to get that restraining order on Savannah. They said it couldn't be proved it was her in the videos. It was a failure, but it didn't matter, because it all stopped. The appearances of Savannah and the haunting. Marilyn and I, and the dogs, were finally able to rest easy. We settled into life at her house. We made it a year with everything going perfectly. We fell full into love. I proposed. She said yes. I moved into her place. We slept with her giant dogs every night, safe and happy. Then, the haunting started to pick up again. It was intense. We would be lying in bed and hear someone walking out in the hallway, or we would be in the bathroom and suddenly see a man standing behind us in the mirror. I had to learn to live with it, though. I loved her, and it just was what it was. I hoped it would get better. Something else unfortunate started to happen after the haunting got bad for a while, though. Savannah was back. It took a while to see it because she was changing vehicles so much and changing her looks. She had gained a ton of weight and wore shoes, which made her look taller. We went back to the process of trying to capture her in photos and videos, but again, she seemed to know when we were onto her and disappeared. There was another calm for a few weeks. It didn't feel the way the one did before, though. It felt more like the eye of a storm. It came at night again, the haunting. Marilyn and I were asleep in the middle of the night. All of the lights and electronics in our bedroom flashed on. We woke right up. I saw the split-second image of the silhouette of the man by the bedroom door. It was such second nature to me at this point, I didn't even bat an eye. It was different this time, though. The image of the man lingered, and I finally really got a look at him. He was young, probably around 20, dark hair, dark features, tall, thin, and a little rugged. I heard Marilyn whimper and looked over to her. She was crying as she looked at the young man. Then my attention was drawn to the door as it opened slowly. I held my breath and saw a shadow step just inside the room. I saw the sight of a gun emerge from around the corner. I froze like a deer in the headlights. Whoever was aiming that gun at Marilyn and I had a wide open shot. I could sense they were about to pull the trigger. I closed my eyes. In that little moment of darkness, I heard a scuffle break out. I opened my eyes and saw the male figure wrestling in the doorway with whoever had the gun, and the male figure was winning, forcing them out of the room. I don't know what came over me, but I rushed in that direction, leaving Marilyn and the dogs still frozen behind me. I was out in the hallway and watching the person with the gun get chased out of the house. I followed them into the living room where I saw a window broken out. For another time, I was able to recognize who was terrorizing us. I could see her small, frail frame trying to fight off this powerful spirit of a young man. There was no denying it was Savannah with the gun. I saw Savannah on the ground, trying to fight off the spirit and struggling. For a second, I kind of felt sorry for her. Down there on the ground, tiny and hurt and insane. I doubt stalking us and getting pummeled by a ghost was what she had always wanted in life. She was simply sick. Those thoughts were running through my head when I watched Savannah slip away from the spirit and rush out the window. I had a feeling I was never going to actually see her again this time. I also had a feeling about that, with the spirit of the young man as well. I looked at his back as I heard Savannah run away into the night, out the broken window. The spirit of the young man turned to me for a brief second. I saw a sense of relief on his face for a moment. I felt someone approach me from behind. I was startled at first and turned around to see Marilyn and the dogs walking into the living room. The spirit of the young man finally turned around. I watched him meet Marilyn's gaze. The two of them held eyes for a very long time. Everyone silent. Tears gushed out of Marilyn's eyes now. I watched the spirit of the young man nod to her. I watched and heard Marilyn start to break down. I looked over again, and the spirit of the young man was gone. Then I went to comfort Marilyn. I had connected some dots before Marilyn even started mapping them out to me. The spirit which had been hovering around us and haunting us was of her older brother, Casey. Casey died in a snowboarding accident years before, shattering Marilyn's young life. Her brother had been her hero and protector, and he was gone suddenly when she was in her vulnerable teenage years. Casey had always told Marilyn he would be there for her. She thought he was actually ramping up his presence and haunting when he knew Savannah was hovering and coming for us. Casey pushing himself back into our world to protect her. The whole thing actually made Marilyn feel good. It gave her some comfort and resolution with Casey. What happened with Savannah was not comforting. We had a ton of video evidence of her, and the police were finally okay with moving forward with several charges. Only problem was, the police couldn't find Savannah. She had moved out of her parents' house weeks before, and no one had any contact with her. Marilyn and I weren't as scared as we could have been, though. We had a feeling someone would protect us. I was 12 when my godfather offered me money to clean his basement. I should have said no. I've never shared this before publicly, but I need to. Because even as an adult, I still carry fear, not of all white people, but especially ones who act like a man I knew as a child. My godfather, Lee. I was born in Georgia. My mother was 16, my father 36. Legal, but not right. She left him when I was 1 because he was abusive. He never hit me, but he was emotionally cold and dishonest. He never told me he loved me, but he did love telling stories. One story he repeated often was how he met my godfather, Lee, at a gas station in the early 1980s. Lee, a white man, called him a racial slur. Later that night, My dad saved him from being robbed at gunpoint. From that moment on, Lee said my dad was different and became his friend. Eventually, business partner. My dad even asked Lee to be my godfather. When I was 12, I finally got to visit my dad for the summer. One night, Lee offered me cash to clean his basement. I said yes, but the moment I walked down there, I knew something was wrong. My skin prickled. The air felt thick. At the bottom of the stairs was a mannequin in full KKK robes. The walls were covered in Confederate flags, nooses, lynching memorabilia, and white power signs. I froze. Lee appeared out of nowhere and said, smiling, "That room's off limits. Don't tell your daddy. He knows, but it don't need to be remembered." I left immediately, told my dad I was sick and wanted to go home early. He didn't ask questions, just drove me back. Years later, I brought it up. My dad just said, "Sometimes a man's got ghosts. As long as they don't haunt you, you let them be." But they do haunt me. I still get nervous around certain white men, the ones who smile too fast, who say things like, "You're not like the others," who carry themselves the way Lee did, fake calm, polite, but full of something darker. And I'll be honest, this experience damaged my trust in men overall, including black men, because my own father handed me to a man he knew kept hate in his basement, then told me to be quiet about it. I don't hate all white people, and I don't hate all men, but fear, it learned its shape early, and it hasn't left me. It has affected my everyday life and how I view white people in general. How do I reverse this? I'm 36 and terrified of white people. I can't get those images out my head. Getting gas saved my life. As I sit in my cozy bed, I finally feel safe enough to tell my story, so here it is. 2 nights ago, I was coming home from the night shift at work. My music was blasting. The clock showed 11:43 p.m., and I was excited to actually step foot in the house before midnight for once. As I came off the expressway exit, the gas light lit up, and the chirp of the warning sound made me groan. I knew my little SUV could make it another 10 miles before it shut down on me, and since I was only 2 miles from home, I could be lazy and get gas in the morning. In fact, I think to myself, how I never do get gas late at night anyway, so why would tonight be any different? As I turned on my street, my gut started warning me that something was wrong. I anxiously tapped my fingers on the steering wheel, and when I pulled up to my house, my inner thoughts were screaming at me to just get gas now. I stopped for a second, looking at my dark and empty driveway, before listening to my gut and peeling into the street and off to the gas station. I got my gas, even stopped in the little store for some peanut M and Ms before heading back to the house. The clock read 2 a.m. in bright green numbers on the dashboard as I pulled into the driveway, and another groan slipped from my mouth. I got out of the car, walked up the driveway, and then up the stairs and let myself into my dark house. 10 minutes later, my adoring husband pulled up, and I knew it was safe to go to bed. The next morning, my husband calls me in panic. I hear the shakiness of his voice when he asks me if I had purposely muted our Ring camera. I told him I didn't, but that would explain the lack of notifications the past 3 days. He then tells me to sit down because he has a video he needs to send my way. An iMessage then pops up and I click on the video. There, labeled with yesterday's date and the time of 11:47 p.m., I watch in horror as my SUV pulls away from the house, and out from the Seine, bushes that line my property, comes a tall, slender man in a black hoodie. He looks up the driveway, then down the block where my SUV just pulled off, before pulling out a large kitchen knife from the next bush. He slips the knife into his sweatshirt pocket and slowly slips into the 4 acres of forest that is just across the road. The camera then shuts itself off before the second video, time labeled 12:02 a.m., of me safely walking to my house. Had I not stopped for gas, that tall, slender man would have butchered me in my own driveway. My screams for no one to hear, and my dead, bloody body for only my poor husband to find. Don't open the door. Real story. When I was around 10, my dad always worked nights. So often it was just me, my mom, and my siblings. I liked to sleep in my parents' bed when it was just me and my mom. One night I woke up at around 3 to 4 inches the night from someone banging on our front door. And just so y'all understand, first, when you enter the house, there is a hallway that goes down to the bedroom, and right beside the front door is where our kitchen is, so you can nearly see the whole front door from inside. First, I was skeptical of going out of the bed. To be real honest, I was scared straight. I even pinched myself to check if it was real. It was just so weird to hear someone repeatedly banging, knocking on our door, And it was not so hard either. It was like someone actually expected us to open. After like 1 minute of knocking, I went up and slowly made it to the door. The knocking kept going, and I was about to go wake my mom up. But first, I wanted to see who or what it was, so I went into the kitchen. I had to kind of crawl around so the person outside couldn't see me. I peeked through the window, and all I could see was a tall guy with all black clothes. When I had just left the kitchen, he started to tap the window. I knew he could see me, but I had my back turned. I just started to scream and cry. I couldn't even move. I was frozen. In just a couple of seconds, my mom ran to me asking what was wrong, and I explained. Of course, the man was gone, probably because of my screaming, but I will always think about why he was knocking on our door and what would have happened if he got in. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't already, please give the video a like and hit that subscribe button. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, and I know we can get there soon with your support.